On the hunt for comfortable, timeless Western boots? You already know the best place to shop for quality boots is at your local Tacova store. So stop by Tacovas Nashville at the Mall at Green Hills or on Broadway by Ryman Auditorium. That's right, you now have 2 locations to choose from. Grab a cold one as you shop and get fitted by a pro. Tacovas Nashville is at your service, and you can find your perfectly fitted dream boots with the help of their expert staff. Everyone will be asking where you got your sick new boots, but I won't be asking because I know they must be Tacovas. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all. Today on CityCast Nashville, our producer, Marie Cecile Anderson, is talking about her favorite place in town, Robert's Western World, with Smilin' Jay McDowell. Jay's journey from playing for tips at Robert's Western World with BR549 to touring the world of legends like Bob Dylan and George Jones is truly inspiring. He's been a part of Robert's Western World since before it was Robert's Western World. We originally published this episode in July, but we're featuring Roberts again because this month they had their 25th anniversary celebration, and we want to make sure you know the history behind this spot. Roberts has actually been in the news lately for their Gospel Hour. It's every Sunday, 10:30 to 11:45 a.m. It's an hour of gospel music led by Reverend Ron Blakely, but just know there's no drinking. CityCast Nashville is presented by our exclusive launch sponsor, Tacovas.
It's August 19th. I'm Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Back in 1999, Robert Wayne Moore handed over the reins of Nashville's iconic honky-tonk, Robert's Western World, to the latest owner, Jesse Lee Jones. Joining me today is someone who was present in the early 90s at its inception, giving us a very unique perspective on the history and legacy of this beloved Nashville honky-tonk. I just want to know, where did you get the name Smilin' Jay?
I've been Smilin' Jay since I was in grade school. Just the glass is always half full.
Oh, that's me too. I love that. I love that attitude. Before we get into Roberts, I really just want to talk and kind of set the stage because some people may be listening who have never heard of Robert's Western World. I know.
Well, sure.
Shocking.
Sure.
So Robert's Western World is the best bar on the planet Earth, and it's located downtown Broadway in Nashville. Could you kind of just give us the origins of Lower Broadway?
I'll start off by saying there's no other place like Robert's Western World. I think what's fascinating to me is how many origin stories there are, meaning it's died, it's been reborn, it's died again, it's been reborn, it's died again, it's been reborn. This resurgence and the way it just is resilient and comes back to life, to me, it's what I've come to learn in my old age is it's not a place, it's the people. Roberts is about the people, and that's what drives it. And when I first stepped foot in the place, I was not impressed. It was scary, and the whole Lower Broadway was not a place I wanted. It wasn't inviting. It was peep shows, and it was not I knew the history and the music background of it. And so that drew me there in the first place. But my first visit was not pleasant, and I didn't want to go back. But I was invited back and saw it through the eyes of a couple friends, and then came to love the place. But yeah, it's about the people is what it's about.
I love that. So what you're saying is the early 90s downtown Nashville is a totally different vibe than it is now. What was Roberts like back then?
At this time, it was fluorescent lights. It was because there was a clothing shop. They weren't selling drinks. They were selling cowboy boots and shirts and hats. Robert got the idea that he wanted live music in the window. So as people were going from honky-tonk to honky-tonk, they would stop into his shop. I don't know, other people can tell you when it went from being called the Rhinestone to Roberts. And it was, Robert had worked at Tootsie's and then got this business at Roberts. And so it was Western wear. It was Robert's Western wear. Then it was Robert's Western World. And then as younger people started hanging out for the music, and just because it was weird, we were buying beer at Tootsie's and sneaking it into Roberts because we wanted to drink, but we wanted to hear the music that was happening at Roberts. And it was just funky. It was weird. It was in an old clothing store, Western wear store. So Robert was hip to the fact that we were sneaking beer in, but he wouldn't bust us. But I know that's what led to him. At first, he would sell like RCs out of a cooler. But again, the fluorescent lights had to stay on because he's worried about shoplifting, especially as people are drinking. They're trying to steal stuff. So it's like, you're going from these little honky tonks where typically the lights are low, and then you walk into this place and it's lit up like a Kmart. So Robert starts selling. I remember like one weekend he started selling RCs out of a cooler by the front door. And then the next weekend he was selling PBR out of a cooler, and we loved that because it was like, okay, we can buy beer here, and we don't have to sneak it from down the street.
Sneak it in, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the organic evolution of this place where Robert's selling PBRs out of a cooler. Then suddenly he's, more and more people are showing up. It's just a weird experience. These across the board demographic. There was no demographic. It was college kids. It was punk rockers. It was truck drivers. It was retired couples. It was people that worked downtown. It's just this whole conglomeration of people start showing up. And then Robert, one by one, starts like moving the clothing racks out and putting a couple tables in. And, over a series of weeks or months, it kind of morphs into a honky tonk. Now, still with the bright lights, and the clothing racks started to shrink. The boots on the wall stayed because that didn't take up any space.
So that's why there's all the boots still from the clothing store.
That's the remnants of the clothing store. So with these racks of clothing that we would scoot over to the side at the end of the day, because daytime traffic, I don't know if people started playing like at 2 in the afternoon or so from my memory when I was down there, but at nighttime, they would definitely like push the racks over to the wall. Robert would still sell you a shirt at 11 o'clock at night, but that wasn't the main focus anymore. And he builds a little bar in there, and there were just always projects going on. He was always expanding and growing, and it happened organically. It wasn't like this master plan so that it would be what it is now. It was like, okay, we need an office back here. So one day they'd be putting up drywall and making an office. And then the upstairs was office space, and they renovated that and made the balcony. And then they made the bar longer. And then they could sell beer at first, but then it was a certain thing, like you needed to sell X amount of food for it to have a liquor license, that kind of thing. So then they put a grill in, and it just started evolving and growing. So then they're selling food, and I think just to have a beer license, I don't know the politics, I don't know the ins and outs. I was just playing music there, but there would be like lunch meat slices, like sweaty lunch meat on the bar for sale, and that was like, hey, to have a beer license, we got to sell food. So sandwiches are $4. But I would look at that meat, and it was very suspect. This meat had been sitting out for who knows how long. But then when the grill came in to get the liquor license, that was another thing where it just kept evolving. And then he had pretty good food, and then full bar. Then the balcony opens, another bar opens up. It was just constantly growing. And
so you were there for the inception of it all, and it even sounds like you were there for the inception of the fried bologna sandwich that they still have on the menu today.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more? So this was in the 90s. What honky tonks did exist around there, and how did Roberts stick out?
I mean, Roberts stuck out just because it wasn't initially a honky tonk. It was a Western wear store in the middle of these honky tonks. So the Wagon Burner was next door, which is where Layla's is now. Tootsie's was always there. Tootsie's was the hive. Tootsie's was kind of the tourists would come, and Tootsie's had been established. Of course, that used to be called Mom's back in the day. Across the street there was the Wheel. Ernest Tubbs Record Shop was there, yeah. And the Merchants, the restaurant was down there on 4th and Broad. And Adult World was just the opposite direction from Tootsie's, from Roberts as Tootsie's. And so that was the other wrinkle, was with all these peep shows down there. You had all these workers that worked in these sex shops down there that they'd be getting off work at whatever time of the day. They weren't necessarily working 9 to 5, if you know what I mean. And they'd get off work and then they'd be in those bars drinking. And it was just this revolving cast of characters that was so entertaining. And I'm fascinated that now when I go down there, of course it's not the same people, but it kind of is. It's a new cast of characters, but it's the same soap opera, the same drama, the same problems with, the waitress at Roberts is just broken up with her boyfriend who plays drums at Tootsie's.
Oh, right.
And now he started dating the bartender. All the drama is still there, and it's oddly comforting because the people are gone. There's some familiar faces when I go downtown now, but it's, for the most part, it's not the same people. But I started to realize over time that it's the same drama. It's the same soap opera going on. But it's also amazing to cross paths with these people who have moved away and gotten jobs and left Nashville and all these years later that, I'll cross paths with somebody that I hadn't even thought about in 30 years. And I'll see them and maybe I didn't even know their name, but we knew each other just from being on the street, whether they were a musician or dating a musician or working as a bar back or whatever. So it's amazing that you have this little tribe of people. And like I said, there's still a tribe down there, and they're still working and just trying to make a buck. And you got hustlers and the musicians that are showing up. And so I really fell in love with the whole culture of it. And like I said, the people that I made relationships with there was what the strength of it was.
I'm sitting here with Smilin' J. McDowell from the legendary band BR549. And what better person to ask? What was the music scene like in the early 90s here in Nashville?
The whole point of Broadway, you show up, you get any gig you can, just give me a time slot, show them what you can do. You get the gig, ultimately you're working towards prime time. You're trying to get the gig that's nighttime. And then really you're trying to get Friday and Saturday night. That's the pinnacle. So you're working your way up to the next shift. And I've been downtown and I'll see some group at 11 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. And my first thought is, oh, these poor guys working this, early morning, late morning shift, but early in the day shift. And, on a weekday. And then I'll sit there and I'll listen to them and I realize like, they're really good. That's, it's just this level of professionalism down there that to even get those gigs, you got to be good to even get a spot. And they're just working their way to get to that next, maybe we can get the late afternoon gig. And then if we can get a couple slots in the evening and then working your way up. Robert's a genius. Robert really, he was business savvy. I'll tell on myself here a little bit. I wrote Robert off a little bit at first because he doesn't, let me just say this. As we were really happening, the Tennessean was interviewing the band and they asked to talk to Robert as part of the interview. And so I was sitting at the bar listening to Robert talk to the newspaper reporter. And Robert's, old country boy, an old boxer. And he'll say things in a, it's this kind of, it's wisdom, but he'll say it in a way that, is yokel country, backwoodsy. And I was sitting there like eating a sandwich while he was being interviewed by the guy from the Tennessean. I was thinking like, well, they're not going to be able to use any of this. This is, it's just, this is crazy. So a couple days later, whenever the big article comes out that's got quotes from all of us, there were 2 quotes in there from Robert Moore, and they were brilliant. And I heard him say those words, but when I read them in the paper without seeing him or hearing the way he said them, I realized, oh, he knows what he's talking about. And obviously he knew what he was talking about, but he really drove that place and made it what it was. And then put us on the sign, the home of BR 549. And that was, that was what an honor. And so Robert was always, he looked at like the success we had as a band was Robert's success for the bar. So we get a record deal. The irony is that we make a record and we have to leave Robert's to promote it. So our first album was called Live from Robert's, and it was kind of this double-edged sword. Like, we're celebrating this place. There's no place like it. And now we got to leave it to sell it to the world. And, but Robert loved that because we were going all over the world and talking about Robert's Western World. So people were coming to Nashville to see what was happening. Now, Jesse Lee Jones starts playing. When we left, Brazil Billy stepped up and took that prime spot, and they played. And so he was heavily involved. Now, we were gone for the next 8 years or so. So we were just on the road. So whenever we were home, we would pop into Robert's and check in, and we played there, once a year, maybe, that kind of thing. But it hamstrung us when we came home that we were playing to bigger crowds, but we didn't want to betray Roberts, so we always tried to play Roberts, even though we should have been playing, we'd do one-off things here at the Ryman or whatever, but it felt like, no, we need to stay on the street, so we'd still go back and play at Roberts. But so I can't speak that much to the transition to Jesse from Robert because I was gone. Now, we knew it was in good hands when that news came out, and Jesse's a great guy and a good businessman, and so I was happy that it was going to continue, and he wanted to keep it. That was the big fear, and that's always the fear down on the street, is that those businesses get sold or the building gets sold, and the business is going to change and be wiped away, and some developer has plans to come in with, we're going to make this into condos now or whatever. And the fact that Robert's continued, again, the older I get, the more I cherish that it's still going, because so many businesses in general and restaurants and places like that don't last. Think how many, if you think back to the 90s and the early 2000s, there's very few businesses that still are going strong and still are what they are. Tootsie's still is, Robert's still is, but most of the street is not what it was. But I'm Smiling J. I'm always looking at the plus side. I'm so proud of what Broadway is now. I wanted it to be that way when I first moved here. I wanted it to be thriving and booming and music everywhere. Now, a lot of locals don't agree with me, and they feel like it's a zoo and it's mayhem, and they're shocked when I kind of applaud Lower Broadway today because it's unique. There's no other, in all of our travels all around the world, there's no other place like Lower Broad. There's no other place like Robert's. That just reinforced that. So,
well, I love walking in and seeing the upright bass. That's when I know I'm going to really have a good time. And I love dancing there. I actually like to find one of the oldest men in the room and ask him to dance, and it just blows his mind every time. Whoever I find to dance with. It really is just such a good time.
Let me say something there. Robert's was a place where people danced, and that was a gigantic thing. Meaning, when I went to other shows or played in other places, not in Lower Broadway, people didn't dance. They're all musicians in the crowd. So you go see the acts that are coming through town, and it might be a sold out show, and the audience was mainly musicians because it's Nashville, and they might have been just killing it on stage, but the song ends and everybody politely applauds because they're all drummers and bass players and guitarists thinking, oh, that was really amazing. They're not jumping around and dancing. They're analyzing it and enjoying it their way. So I saw that time and again where these bands that came through town felt like they failed. And I was like, no, you guys killed it. Like, that was a great response from the crowd. And they're like, but nobody dances. And I was like, well, people don't dance in Nashville. You go into Robert's and people danced for whatever reason. the inhibitions were stripped away and people danced. And that was the first thing most people noticed back in the 90s as they walked into Roberts. We'd be playing on stage and there's a full dance floor in front of us. And people are like, well, this is different because I want to dance and I want to have fun. And Roberts was just, it just felt different and it felt like you could dance. And watching the group of people that showed up every night just to dance, you know, you had the young girls and usually the older guys. And once they kind of established that, okay, the guys are here to dance, they're not creeps. You know, you have that. That's an element there. But once that was kind of established, like, oh, they're here to dance, and that's why they're here. Then you start seeing these people pairing up and dancing all night long, and these amazing friendships came out of that. These people that danced together at Roberts, and so that was really cool to see that it was. Another byproduct of it than just the music was the dancing and the kind of the little scene that happened, and people liked dressing in the fancy clothes and the Western wear, and that became a thing as well.
Well, I do find it so interesting. So Tootsie's is now in the airport. Prince's Hot Chicken is all over the country now, you know, and I've heard Jesse Lee in an interview say that people do approach him all the time to resurrect Robert's Western World in Vegas or at the airport, but just all over the world they want to open Robert's Western World, and he says absolutely not. And he really has said that his legacy will live on after he passes or whatever. So where do you see Robert's headed in the next 50 years? Do you, like me, just pray that it'll just withhold the test of time and just still remain exactly that? What do you predict?
I can't pretend to know a thing. I can't know a thing. Now, I do know that there's going to be the same soap opera going on down there in 50 years. That's, you know, if there's still a strip of entertainment venues there, you know, I can see the cycles of that will still be there. And like I said, it's been a cycle of ups and downs for Lower Broadway since 1920s, that it's thrived and then it's died, and then it's thrived and then it's died and then it's thrived. So I see that, like, why wouldn't that continue? That'll be a thing. It'll have its ups and downs for sure. You know, of course you hope that somebody will come after Jesse and have the same heart to put into it, because again, it's the people. It's not just the cool building, because it's, you know, same with the recording studios. It's the people that make those go. It's not just the walls and floor. But yeah, I can't pretend to know what's around
where it would head. Yeah. Smilin' J. McDowell, thank you so much for coming on the show. I learned so much from you. As we say goodbye, do you have a special anniversary message that you'd like to send along?
Well, happy anniversary. That's amazing. To keep a business like that going for 5 years is impressive. So I can't imagine keeping it going for 25. But yeah, here's to 25 more. Sure.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. Marie, thank you so much for covering for me as I played hooky. I love you. And if you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye!